effort, high impact, or high impact, high effort that we need to basically resource or not. Do you think that's a worthwhile exercise? With so few of us, I think it would be pretty easy to say, like, we don't have that or we can do it.
Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile exercise. I would also argue that there's some that we have that we are underrepresented on in comparison to need. So
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the only other like thing. There should be like a middle category that's like have not enough.
Okay. And then there's the timeline of stuff, which it seems like we work on some of these things inherently. It might be worthwhile to say what we've already done or what's being worked on, and maybe what I don't know if it's time yet to say like what we can do for next week or something like that. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
I say no, not yet.
Yeah, I think so as well. Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
it's also kind of important. That's something that I've learned in my community is like, because this is not like a regular company, not everyone is like paid basically their normal hourly wage, I want to say, is like, just needs to take it easy and cut people some slack. You know, if you overdo it, then people become fed up fairly fast, and it's not necessarily leading to a good result. So I say we'd rather take it easy, you know, and not overwhelm ourselves or others, and get shit done in, you know, kind of a comfy manner. Doesn't sound so cool if you think about the space we're in, because everyone in Web3 always thinks everything has to get done like 2 days ago. But surprising enough, it also works, and sometimes it works much longer if we take some time to do stuff. So let's try that.
It's hard because like coming from tech too, like you know, it's always like a push and everything is tomorrow. But I mean the reality is there are plenty of communities who have done that and then like also not gone anywhere because the quality of what they put out is also not great. And then second, like Stella was saying, like people get burnt out and fed up if they feel like the, you know, time reward scenario is not like in line with you know, not only that, but like sometimes it just simply comes down to need. Like if people get too deep and then they look up and go, oh well shit, I gotta pay my bills today. You know, like so
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
speaking of which, putting up a proposal to get you paid for this work. I have been so absent. I literally haven't even been at my computer, like at all, like zero. So I wanted to make sure that somebody else took that up for you. Otherwise, I will just do it today while I'm at my computer after this meeting, because I don't want that to go any longer.
I gave David moderator like what I thought made sense to ask for. So basically I asked for 75% of my normal rate for just the first 2 weeks. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I just need to have it written up and sent out.
But you gave it to David to work on already?
Just the monetary amount.
Oh, okay. Just to figure that amount out.
So he said in UDT, and I said, well, that's fine, but I don't want to cash it in and mess the value of UDT up. But also ARB is really low, and those are the two things we have the most of. So any advice on how to handle that would be appreciated, because I do have bills coming up that need paid. But I also don't want to tank the value of UDT. So
fair enough. I think it's also this is like a multi-step process, right? So I think it's not just like sending this to David, it's also just having this as an open discussion in the community. And I think this is something you should do yourself. That's not something
yeah, no, I agree.
necessarily someone else should do for you. You know, same goes for Danny, obviously, and his role, and he has started his thread. So I think there's that, and yeah, I think maybe you can, if possible, you can think longer term and think of like a combination of UDT and ARP. I think
Yeah,
that
so
would probably be the ideal version. Like if I could have gotten more UDT, I would have chosen more UDT, but no one wanted to give me more UDTs.
Yeah.
So Julia
So
jumped in.
I feel like I said this, but I'm splitting it up to like the work that was done and the role, so that they could be separate.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's going to come down to what we talked about last time. I'm looking at the price of ARB right now. Like we just, if Lana's not going forward with putting in for retroactive funding from both the ARB and OP communities, we just need to like hop on that so that we have more liquidity to work with.
That's a good idea. Did you take a look at the steps that I put together? Is this something you feel? No, not yet, right? No computer yet. Okay.
Yeah, like literally the last time I was at my computer was the last time you guys saw me. Like it has been like that.
Okay. Hey, Danny.
Yes.
Look at him
Hey.
crunching some snacks over there. How dare you? How dare you come to a meeting and eat yummy snacks?
Danny, are you safe? How is
Yeah,
it where you're
I'm
at?
in Rwanda right now. I'm in
Okay.
Rwanda, so yeah, none of
How
the
long are you
kids.
how long are you gonna be in Rwanda?
Probably 3 months or more.
Okay. Oh, so maybe things will be stable again by the time you go back.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I was worried
Thank
about
you.
you when I saw some news this morning.
Yeah, it's crazy out in Nigeria right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're in Rwanda and that you're safe. Like, because that really freaked me out this morning. I was like, oh my God.
I'll have to look up that news.
Yeah. There's a bunch of unrest right now. There's some rioting going on, and stuff, and they sent the military to answer, which is not good.
But
Yeah.
not another assassination attempt yet.
No, it's pretty much just some protests, and it's like supposed to be peaceful protests, but they, in Nigeria, sometimes they can hire thugs to sort of cause trouble so the police can come in and do things. And so it's
Justify.
been, yeah, but it's supposed to just be peaceful protests about things that's going on. There's so many things that's happening that's not right. So,
Okay. Thanks for sharing. Sorry that you're dealing with that. I can't imagine.
Yeah, that sucks.
John Doe. We have John Doe in here.
We have
Hi
a
guys,
John Doe in here. Hi.
you do, yeah. I am the infamous John Doe. I'm simply, by the way, from Lexdow. Just a heads up that I'm the assistant operator at Lexdow, and obviously we've done quite a bit of work with Unlock in a number of different capacities. So for those of you that do know me, hi. It's nice to see everybody. I'm a real person,
Good to see you
but
guys.
that's all you get. So.
Cool. So, since you haven't,
But,
go ahead. Sorry.
Welcome.
no, please,
I was gonna say, since you haven't been here, I'll just like really quick recap.
please, that would be great.
So you did the survey, right? Along with
Yes.
other people. That's what kind of all of these sticky notes are. And we came up with a framework to build out a mission statement and went through kind of what we want to be and what we want to seem like. And so I don't know if you saw this, but this is kind of what we came up with, distilled. So the Unlocked DAO is a global community of developers, creators, and organizations dedicated to decentralized access and distribution. So that's kind of like who we are. And what we do is we act in full service of Unlock Protocol by guiding individuals and groups to empowerment, right? Education, grants, collective governance, enhanced tools and guidance for building on top of the protocol.
That's great. I love that you guys are doing this. It's really good. I feel like just as an anecdote, like I've been a member of a couple of organizations that have been sort of VCP, private equity backed projects that have spun out quote, air quotes DAOs that are associated with them. And I think it's really, I like the dynamic between you guys here in this particular group, and just the idea that you really clearly defined what your role is going to look like in the ecosystem is quite admirable. I also, by the way, whoever came up with the process for doing the survey, building this Miro board, organizing it around these concepts, definitely 2 thumbs up to the architecture of how this particular methodology was done. I've seen a lot of them professionally, and this is quite well done. Like, I wouldn't have expected this caliber of sort of planning being brand planning being done. So kudos to you guys on this, and I'll let you guys kind of.
We're just super lucky to have Alex Chambers here, who
You are.
is a master's in human-computer interaction and has done these professionally for other companies. So yay, and thank you, Alex, for being our experience master.
Yeah, Alex, I'm going to put you on my call list. I'm very happy to see somebody in the space doing this because anyway, like a lot of everything that I'm seeing about the engineering components of Web3 in general, it neglects the human focus. And the one reason that I'm even in Unlocked in the first place is because at whatever capacity they could do, Julian and Chris have clearly thought about the people experience and making this a usable application that's very much a bridging mechanism between Web 2 and Web 3 as opposed to being exclusive to an upgrade, quote unquote. So anyways, I'll leave you guys back to it. I'm sorry to monopolize. I just wanted to say initial impressions were very good. I have not seen any of this before. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. Self-plug, this is my favorite type of work. I've been doing UX work for like 9.5 years. So if you need somebody to do this stuff, get in touch with me. Cool. So let's keep rolling. So I don't know if you remember this, but we had some milestones, like of what success looks like in a near, short, and long term. And we've kind of reorganized those to like most important and less important, and kind of put this on a timeline. This is what will build out the sort of long-term roadmap. Below that is the how we do it. So you're noticing that there's squares here and not here. As Stella labeled this is the scary square, right? So we've got some things of like how we do or what we do to achieve those milestones, and we've put them on this grid of impact and effort. And the best part to be in is kind of this high impact, low effort bit. So we can do things really easily, but achieve high impact for it. And then high impact, high effort are things that are very important that make sense to do. This is kind of the no square, very low impact, high effort. We probably don't want to do things there. And this is kind of where we're going to start back up in today. Does anybody have questions on what we did last time or need help and instructions on what to do this time?
I just have one comment. I had a thought after the last session about the fact that we ended up with so many high impact, high effort squares or items in that square. I think that almost every problem, when it feels high effort, can sometimes like be simplified, and sometimes that'll move it over to the low effort side, but sometimes that takes like a little bit of I guess time to think it through clearly. And there might be a benefit, is what I'm saying, of having a day where we go through those one by one and say, is there a way that we can turn these from high effort to low effort? And if we do that, are we affecting the impact that they make? For one thing, are they still high impact?
So in general, like this is typically used to get quick wins, right?
Yeah.
So people often after these sessions will take the high impact, low effort things and just like go do them.
Right.
And then the high impact, high effort things is more of a discussion of like, hey, which one of these seems feasible? Like, do we have a team already set up to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have like a specialist in this area? Like, we
Right.
think it's high effort, but like somebody else already does this and it's not really that high effort for
High
them.
effort for
That's
them.
kind of usually
Yeah.
how these squares are utilized.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and I'll put some just quick feedback on this in terms of in-person events, because I noticed that that's a low impact, high effort component, especially and attending in-person events and on-site recordings. I would recommend that these actually, you can move these into a higher impact zone with the same low effort, because like, for example, we want to use you guys at MCon the way that you guys were used at ETH Denver with our second sort of iteration of a metacartel events oriented showcase.
Yep.
So you guys developing the partnerships to allow us to be able to implement this product. Number one, like there is a clear tie-in between the grant that I just applied for the Arbitrum unlock use case, how we utilize your product for development, and the high impact component of us getting in front of 100 crypto enthusiasts for big, well-produced panel events, and using you guys in a practical application from both a POAP, proof of attendance, and also ticketing / kind of events oriented thing that requires almost no lift from you guys. So just another way to construct maybe what those two things look like for free exposure, because it's mutually beneficial, and we want to do it anyway, even if we didn't have your support.
yeah, that makes sense, and that's awesome. I think I see Stella taking notes down vigorously about that. So I think context also matters too, right? So what you're saying does seem like something that's not super difficult for us, because it's basically we get invited to go do some stuff and we just have to like prepare and then be there. The context or framing that we were thinking of this when this was being done was in person. I think hackathons is where it started. And so like what Angela said about kind of manipulating it, we kind of split it apart to be like, okay, well, virtual events are easier to attend. Like attending in-person events is easier to attend than creating our own in-person event. If that helps a little bit, that I totally appreciate.
It does. The only thing that's interesting is that, as far as I know, either Julian or Chris were at the event in Denver anyway.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways to kind of think about this. And what I really like is that you guys are thinking about adoption and usage of the protocol and alongside the use of the application for like the product component of this versus the development of the protocol as two different work streams. But yeah, even with the MCon event, we are planning on hosting a hackathon that we could use help promoting, that someone from your team might already be kind of attending. And so it might be much more milestone based and like anyway, sorry. I feel like I'm.
No, this is helpful.
Yeah.
Stella.
Yeah, so what's up?
Yeah, I think maybe this just needs rephrasing, honestly, and then we can move it to the high impact, low effort area, right? Where it's really about like either like kind of like supporting already existing events, or it is something where, I mean, if we sponsor events,
prioritization.
right? I think it's more or less it's a matter of rephrasing this, because we all knew that we want to do in-person events. We just don't want to be the solely responsible entity for that event, because that would mean high effort, potentially high impact, not necessarily. And I think there is a good reason why Chris, as John mentioned, why Chris and Julian have been doing this in a way where they, where they don't have a stand necessarily to take care of our stuff, right? They're rather roaming around freely. Hi, Shiraj. Good morning. And so I think, yeah, it's just about rephrasing rather than maybe keeping this one, because that one was anyway very unspecific, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, good point. John Doe, good point.
I already created one for partnering or collaborating in others in-person events.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. I'm going to group these and lock these though. If you guys are ready to move to the midterm one, the question I have is, do we want these on its own separate square? Or is it worthwhile to have them all together to see like the summation of work that we want to do? Those are two different framings. And so it depends on how you guys kind of do sense making.
I think that having them all together would be beneficial. We can always just increase the size of the squares
Sure.
real quickly.
Can you color code the squares to like short, medium, long, so that
Oh, they
you
are.
get a
Picky and the Brain master plan. This is
That's
what
what they-
Angela
yeah.
is aiming for.
But yeah, they're
Total
already
chaos.
All right, so then let's just rapidly do this. So everyone start grabbing, oh, wrong cursor. Everyone start grabbing these sort of short-term items and place them where you feel like they can go. If you disagree with somebody, just go ahead and grab it and move it. If it becomes a real conflict, we can have a discussion about it. There's, let's see, 4, 8, 60. Okay, we could probably do this maybe like 10-ish minutes, or we'll check in 10 minutes and see kind of where we're at. So feel free to go. I'm going to buy Miro. If my proposal goes through to continue to do this work, I'm going to buy Miro so we can have like the tunes that they provide, like really nice soft elevator tunes. But anyways, that way you don't have to hear the deafening silence. Yeah. And if you have any questions of them, or there's this one that's like super long, if you feel like you can break it up into parts, feel free to do so.
While these guys are doing this, Alex, I mean, this particular device that you're using, high impact, low impact, or it basically priority and urgency. It's a lot of times, I don't know where you grab this from, but I use the same exact thing in a lot of stuff. Where did you grab this from? Where did this come from for you?
That is a very great question. Like I said, I've been doing UX work for 9.5 years. We did some sort of stuff like this in my master's, but not much. And I started doing workshops probably 2 years in. So your guess is as good as mine. I've worked across all kinds of industries. I worked at 3 different consulting firms. I worked in healthcare, automotive, banking. Yeah. So I also work with some Six Sigma people and some Great Belt people, and a lot of the devices are very similar. So I think that early on, I was very purist, where I was like, well, only people that do this should do this type thing. And as I kind of learned through having other people do this work with me, is that I think everyone kind of thinks in these terms. They just need help having a framework to put stuff in. So yeah, I have no idea where I grabbed it specifically.
This was
to design school. I also went to design school right when IDEO was being really big. So design thinking was a big deal at the time. So it even could have came from there.
Yeah, that might be where like this thing, I mean, the way that I usually use this is we usually end up in like project timelines. And you have somebody who's like really like inflating priority and urgency. And so by breaking out priority versus urgency, like the idea that if you in a different sort of way, the same idea of urgency kind of being on the timeline, the x-axis, and then having priority on the y-axis, then what happens is you kind of start like plucking things from the high urgency, high importance, and trying to get ahead of those tasks. Like the more you kind of address the longer term impact, the low urgency, high priority, very important, something that doesn't need to be done right now, the faster you get to that, the less high urgency things kind of come up where everybody's kind of scrambling around. but I just find it interesting that you got this thing laid out in this exercise. It's cool.
I will actually do both of those, where we do the priority one first, and then the square as well. So this specifically idea of high impact or impacted effort is really good for groups that aren't sure where to get started.
Yeah.
Right. It's so that they can grab those easy wins, or if there's a lot of consternation and they really don't know what to do. The framing that we did for the mission statement, it's kind of similar. It's basically like, what are we here to do? So that way you collectively build the context of what your purpose is. And then because you've done that subconsciously, you're thinking about this within that context, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. It's like established projects versus kind of more net new stuff. I mean, I guess you could have established projects where you also are running into the same problem, but
absolutely. Also, don't be afraid to put these in the low impact, high effort square, or low impact, low effort square. Because remember, the fewer things that we have.
I'm not afraid, as you can tell, because all of these are with notes from me, so I dragged them there. I'm not afraid, Alex.
Cool. Because the fewer things we have in the top, the easier we know what to do, right? But also, that's not a problem.
I think the thing with some of these is kind of like, I know you took them from the survey, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that there's a little bit of a confusion here. Like if I see stuff like this one, for example, publish regular updates and reports on the DAO's activities, decisions, right? I think like that's not necessarily the right place to do that on Charmverse. Like, yes, we have a task board and we should update those task boards, granted, right? That's just part of the work, essentially. But like using this as a news platform of sorts, I think it's a confusion that's happening clearly, right? Like news should be on social media, where it's like the majority of people who are invested in the DAO can actually see them, realize that this is happening. If we put it in another closed space, like for example, also Discord, right? Yes, we can do that, but it will not necessarily fulfill its purpose. The same, I think, with, use Discord and Huddle for hosting virtual events and workshops, great. But none of these have a discoverability component. So if we want to be discovered doing these workshops, what usually is, the idea behind workshops, well, then let's not do it on Discord, right? Let's not just do it on Huddle. Actually make this like a public event, so people have a chance to discover those, right? And then, paragraph blog posts, great. Why should we make a competition out of an already existing newsletter made by Unlock? Rather, let's supply articles and more news and more information to Chris to publish them on the same channel and grow that one channel. Sorry, this is why I put them in the low effort, low impact. Okay.
All of those make sense to me.
I'm gonna shut up now.
All of those make sense to me. Okay. If you can you take at least the last one and create its own sticky note for it, to say collaborate with Unlock Labs and their newsletter and ensure that we have our stuff in there? Because there's definitely going to be this idea of internal communication and external, even though we're open and want everyone to know it, right? Like the speed at which people get information is going to be different.
Yeah, rewriting right now, boss, doing it.
Awesome, thanks. While she's doing that, are there any other ones that people would like to specifically kind of call out?
I use something like ClickUp or Jira for project management, tracking the implementation of changes down to low impact, high effort, because we already use GitHub. Like it makes more sense to do the low effort thing, which would be to expand the way that we use GitHub. And that I don't really see any benefit. Like I put it low impact because I'm like, well, what information do we not have that's already there? I mean, we already track issues and features in GitHub using the tools available there. So I mean, certainly we could get more in depth with that, and that would be, you know, maybe beneficial if it was done right.
Yeah, I would take this as a note for future things to say, like, if we have a more robust product team that we're building, or we have a lot more things to track, it's worthwhile knowing that somebody mentioned ClickUp and Jira. Yeah.
Sometimes I think people don't realize how many tools have been added to GitHub over the years. Like,
Yeah, because it's for developers, right? Not for us no code people.
It's, you know, Angela, you have to see it from this point of view, right? Like with even like opening a pull request, it's like, what am I supposed to open? Like, why can I not just drop this in a channel and someone will read it and start working on it? It's just not intuitive. Like, if you're not a developer, it's just not intuitive, right? So I think when we discussed, remember we discussed this kind of like, I think last time when you were here, to maybe have like a website form that automatically pulls this into the GitHub and creating a pull request from that. I think
yes,
you will get so much more really good feedback, right, on stuff.
Yeah, and I agree about that one. It's just the project management tools in GitHub are pretty much like a copy of all the other project management tools. Like, they look the same, they work very similarly. Like,
yeah, I get you.
So they added projects like years ago, and like a lot of people just didn't really know like how featureful they've gotten. And they work really similarly to. I have a hate for Jira, but ClickUp's fine. But like, I also
I hate
for like
Jira as well.
extra tools when they're actually not needed. Like, it doesn't become very efficient at that point. And usually there'll be like one feature that somebody wants that justifies like implementing a whole new set of tools that actually overcomplicates everything for everybody. And
also, when you start using those products like really, really in a sophisticated way, like you always get to a point where it's pre-configured in a way that you don't want it to be configured and isn't really customizable. Like, you get kind of force fed into a box of like, this is how you manage your project.
Yeah, I think it would be better though. Like, there's some processes that we don't do that would be super beneficial to have in the use of GitHub. Like, we don't officially have projects where there's a usability review, for instance, before a feature goes out. That sort of thing. Like,
well, are you familiar that GitHub does offer some project-based
yeah, that's what I was saying.
management
That's what I was
stuff?
trying to
Okay,
say.
cool.
It's like, it's all built into GitHub. We should just use the GitHub.
There's a big learning curve. We tried to, like, you know, you'll notice if you went into our repositories, a lot of revamping of old materials because we've got a lot of treasures that are kind of like sitting unused. And we're trying to figure out good ways to codify things. We have a high focus on the engineering component as like an upskill kind of initiative for Lexdale. And the learning curve of getting people to be able to deal with any of the tools that are inside of there has shown to be quite difficult if you really don't have a coding background.
I mean, there's
I would argue the same is true of Jira in my experience. Yeah. Like I don't think it was very easy to onboard our CS team to Jira. Like, right. When I did that, like before, yeah. I onboarded an entire CS team to, you know, customer support team to Jira, and it was not a good experience.
Fair point. Fair point. It's also difficult, yes.
And pretty much, I mean, over the years, I think I've used probably every tool that for project management and tracking for development.
Yeah, right on. I mean, it's like, what's the difference? Like, you got Jira or Asana or Rike or whatever else you want to pick. Like, they're just like they're all the same and different, and they're all tough.
They all suck in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Alex, are you putting smileys on stuff?
I did a couple, yeah. So I have a question about this one that Simply's on also is documentation improvements, ensure people understand how to navigate the system setup. Did anybody here happen to write that? Because I'm kind of curious what that means. And if not, how are we interpreting what that means? Because to me, I think that means like the docs for the protocol.
That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, I would think so too.
So at present, Labs owns that, right? But we've talked about taking it over, maybe.
It's in the open source repo.
Yeah, it is.
Well, okay.
So it's another thing that you can fill out if you know how to navigate fucking GitHub. Okay.
It's in Docusaurus, which quite honestly is not the easiest tool for non-devs to use. But when you're developing developer documentation, you need the ability to like do some
Also-
certain things like code examples and stuff like that, which Docusaurus is like, you know, one of the tools that are available to actually implement all of the more tricky things that you kind of need to do.
Also, we have a bridge now, right? Let's not forget we have a bridge for this. This bridge has a name. He is called Toby, and he volunteered to be the lock keeper, and he is going to do this for us, okay? So he knows his way around the GitHub. So there's a bridge here. We don't necessarily have, like, it's not like someone, like a singular person, or like every individual, whoever wants to contribute has to necessarily do this by themselves, right? So if Angela wants to write a piece of documentation, but Angela wouldn't be a developer, which she is, but maybe she wouldn't, right? And she is not the one who needs to implement this. This would be something that you send to Toby, and Toby implements this. At least this is what we voted on.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Comment here, because there's two sets of documentation, and this is an area of sometimes confusion and oftentimes issues.
Yeah.
There's guides, which is those are meant for non-technical people, and those guides are actually done in WordPress so that like anybody can actually easily contribute to the non-technical guides who are people who are non-technical, right? That's why it's in WordPress, because it's like super easy for anybody to go in and write an article there. And then the docs are in, those are meant for developers. So really only a developer should be writing them. Like, because
wait.
their audience is a developer.
No, we have a governance section in there. That's not necessarily a developer.
So that's what I was just gonna say is like, there's a part of governance that is technical, and there's part of it that is not technical. And one thing that we're missing right now is the fact that there is nothing in the guides for non-technical people about the governance. And I'm not saying we should remove entirely the governance section in the docs, but I do think, because I do think that the technical parts of governance do belong in the technical docs, but I think that we need guides for governance. And so maybe we should just create a separate sticky that's like guides for governance and put that on high impact, low effort, because that I think would make a very big impact, is getting it out, you know, non-technical guides for governance out of that area and like putting it in the guides. Like, I don't.
Okay.
Oh, nope. Sorry, I'm just making this a little bigger so it fits the other sticky notes a little better. Okay. So do we have any questions about any of the other medium term ones? Somebody put create DAO goals for the year on high impact. I moved it over here. I think that that is as easy or hard as we decide it's going to be. I see blank stares, so I think we're good. Or as Stella says, silence is agreeance.
Yeah, I made some comments in those cells up there. I don't know how you guys are working on sort of like considerations around these three things, but they're just three comments in here about just some ways of reframing maybe some of these elements that are up here. The first one that I'm just gonna flag is just that as you guys consider the tokenomics and token listing, you have it as a high impact, high effort. I personally couldn't care less about what unlocks tokenomics and token listing looks like, and I care very much about seeing you guys be successful. And I think that the tokenomics sort of like comes from the natural sort of like adoption of the protocol and the usage of the protocol, even less than the actual token design itself. So just something to consider, that this may not really actually be a high impact initiative. It might just feel like one. And then just these other two pieces about this with the, okay, go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, feeling passionate about this one that you just mentioned. So I think like I'm on your side of this. I think I've also stated this multiple times before. But, you know, if we think about like the new flywheel and, you know, what we talked about with Julian, to have like, you know, on your dashboard of your log show up the rewards that your log is earning for you, then this can potentially have high impact on how people and how often people are using the protocol, right? It's the same with like Brave browser. Like I see it more from this side than anything else. Otherwise, I'm 100% on your side.
I think we're actually probably closer aligned on this than even we might realize. That actually one of the things that I've been exploring a long time now is sort of like the concept of blockchain as a loyalty program. So if you just imagine like you go to a CVS or you go to like a convenience store that has some loyalty program and coupons associated with it, that's a really interesting manifestation of things. What I just traditionally hear when I hear tokenomics is the idea of a traded sort of point system that has like some intrinsic monetary value associated with it. And that component of this ecosystem just feels like sometimes it's wasted energy until the intrinsic value of the organization is worth more than it is at any moment. Not to say that you guys aren't worth anything, just I think we're just like really the framing of this thing as a loyalty program might be very impactful for people, and that's what that feels like, what you're describing.
Also, Stella, oh, it's blurred. You can't see it, but there's designs right here. I just need to digitize them. I am working on it.
Nice, good job, good job. Okay, no, I added to this, John. I said specifically the new flywheel and protocol rewards. I think it's more about these things, because what you actually want is you want to reward the people, and those are usually also the people who are interested, like voting in the best interest of the protocol, that actually take part in and with the protocol, right? It's a very like kind of like bonded relationship in a way. And so this is something you would want to encourage. And I think in that sense, you know, the new tokenomics that we enabled, right? I think they make a lot of sense. And also looking forward to maybe more cool stuff like this. Let's see what, you know, Julian has up his sleeve that he's not telling us yet about.
Totally. This flywheel buzzword is just circulating around right now, and I kind of think it's a little gross. It's and also there's a very strong existing sort of framework for how loyalty programs get deployed effectively around organizations that have really strong following. So that reward mechanism that you're talking about is definitely incredibly important. Framing it as giving back to people as opposed to as a revenue generating mechanism, which is kind of what I think the flywheel implies, is a good construct to just maybe consider as a group. But anyway, I'll let you guys move on. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I got two more comments in there that you might want to read. If you guys have any questions for me, async or whatever, I'm happy to weigh in. I apologize for coming in like a storm. I'll probably not see any of you again for another 4 weeks. But
No, it's good feedback, and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
You're making up for the sessions you've missed. We understand.
Healthy conflict is what's happening.
Yeah.
So I highlighted the one about set up live stream.
What did Angela do to the arrow?
I moved
She's working on it. It's fine. I see her doing it. It's good.
trying to, but unfortunately it wants to snap over to the useless box. So I can't without a mouse
I'll
proper.
fix it. I'm getting ready to lock the entire board. That way we can put the next one above it. So this last comment, John, do you have anything you'd like to say about that?
The only thing about all of these projects that you guys have here is there's a lot of self-starting components that you're mentioning. And I agree that the self-starting is very challenging because we have like a light podcast that we're doing and we have a newsletter that we've got. And we know that that's really one of the most resource intensive parts of our organization. The content generation is hard. Production and participation and planning, it's all difficult and it's ongoing. But what you guys certainly can do is start amassing a lot of this content for distribution on your YouTube channel. I think through having the dialogue about what you guys are doing, like this idea of what you're doing here is so impactful. I feel like more people should hear it. And the easiest way to do that without the production component of it is probably to just have more of the DAO raising their hands to be out there and talking about things from a different perspective than Julian or Chris would be positioning in the marketplace. So that's loosely what both comments are kind of about, is sort of the near term element should be really like almost a PR initiative of how do we get ourselves in a call. Yeah.
Before I left the core team too, like Chris and I were working on templates for things so that people could easily drop in and create content for the team, because really it was Chris and I creating 100% of the content that you see. And so, you know, we were working on some of that before. And I think that that's really going to be key. Like if you have, you know, templated slide decks that are branded and some, you know, ideas of how things go so that it looks consistent, then you can plug people in making content for you that, that you're pretty much just editing then after the fact, you know, curating and editing content that comes from the community. And I think that if we started some of that with some initiatives for people making videos, and that started like getting a little bit of attraction, but of course things sort of went sideways after that. But like I think that if we bring back that idea of like the creation of content templates, it's a little bit of effort up front, but then you sort of put it on autopilot and then you're just editing from there. So I mean, overall, like it might be high effort to begin with, but then the overall effort over time is like low effort. So
yeah, if this is your if this is like your main area of focus, like if it sounds like something that's a passion project kind of for you, I would be happy. We also are doing stuff like this, but I'd love to show you at some point. You can DM me separately. Is for events that we participate in that have no transcript but have video and audio. I have a script I can give you guys that you can use to do transcription and then run that transcription through an LLM feed to summarize. And then I can show you also some of the content processing that we're using to feed transcripted meetings like this into an LLM for summarization and article creation that allows you to get about 80% of the way there. Yeah. And then just have an editing component. So happy to just, if you want to riff on anything like that, feel free to reach out to me and I can point you to some of the stuff that I've been listening.
I was using Descript before, but I mean, I'm down for like getting everybody's opinion on tools because
I got everything we're using right now is free. I'm using open source models. One of them is local and one of them is just, you know, plugging that local output into ChatGPT. So there's like it's a no cost initiative if you want to deploy it that way, and they're very effective, but that's totally up to you if you guys are looking for other solutions.
Yeah, I'd love to see what you've tried so far. I mean, cool. I'm familiar with spinning up AI models locally, and I have a machine that run them easily. So,
sweet,
awesome. So we have hit our final set of how do we do the sticky notes I'll wait till Stella finishes her star. So these, don't be surprised if they all end up really close to high impact, high effort. We want them to be kind of difficult and hard. But if some of them do hit that low effort, high impact, maybe we should consider doing them earlier on, or setting up framework so that they can happen kind of as we progressively. Yes, Stella.
Also, I think there are some things on the scary square that we can potentially consolidate. Is that also an idea you had, anyways?
Yeah, that would be like the next step.
Okay.
Yeah. Welcome, CC.
Hi, GM. Sorry for being late. Been
No,
in a
you're all
call.
good. We're all good. Welcome. In case you don't have the mirror, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat for you. And we're on our last, I think you were here last time we worked on this. So we just placed the short term, the sort of white grayish sticky notes, and now we're getting ready to place the long term ones here. So yeah, feel free to get going. Same rules, right? If you feel like they need to be expanded on, broken apart, et cetera, go ahead and do so. And shouldn't take too long. And then we'll take a small break after that. Seems like people are kind of done moving. Is that correct?
Huh? What?
Yeah. So I think you're muted if you want to say something.
What did you say? Sorry.
I said it seems like people are kind of done moving things around. Do you feel good about where we're at? See some nods. Awesome.
Yes.
So I had a question on a couple of these. Hopefully one of you guys are here that said this. If not, we can discuss what it means. This benchmark and analyze community ideas. Did anybody happen to write that in their survey by chance?
Yes.
Okay.
Should I elaborate why I put
Please.
them in the scary area?
Yeah.
So for the conducting periodic reviews of ongoing initiatives and projects to ensure alignment with the DAO's mission and vision, I think it's much more important that we get our onboarding sorted out. So we just communicated very well and clear what is the DAO's mission and vision, and not try to create a whole administrative branch that controls if that is working, because then we're absolutely failing at DAO dynamics, okay? So this is like a no-no from my side. And this also counts for continuous review of the impact and effectiveness of process in relation to goals of the DAO. I think it's not about controlling or reviewing anything. It's about communicating from the get-go very clearly, right? Like, what is the stuff that we're actually doing? What are the goals? And we're already working on it. So after we've gone through your process, Alex, the next step is to communicate that really, really well and clear in all areas and all resources for Unlock. So we don't even come in this predicament of having to kind of like review stuff, right? Because review is nothing else than going back. And then benchmark and analyze community ideas. You put a question mark, isn't it? Yeah. So I think it was about, maybe check like kind of like new feature requests or stuff like this, or maybe community ideas or initiatives. I think direct communication, that's what people are somehow trying to avoid these days, but I think it's still the one that works best. So instead of like trying to forcefully create I mean, you guys have seen how well our surveys go, right? They're not going at all, okay? It's not working. But look at us all here on this call talking to each other and figuring stuff out. It's obviously working much better, right, than the surveys work. So, yeah, anyways, my 2 cents to this.
So I have a question on one of those about kind of reviewing. How then do you feel about this sort of KPI to assess progress towards long-term goals? I assume that means KPIs for everything. So where do you see the semantic or actual difference between those two things?
Strong
Yeah, go.
opinions here. I can
Yeah.
storm right in. Okay, Cecilia, you want to go first? You can go first. I'll let you go first.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Just as like a reflection from some other DAOs that I have been trying to contribute. Um, it's great for Unlock to be building this because as a result from this, you will have like strategic lines where the DAO is going to head and what the DAO wants to do, and what's the things that really want to improve and fund and all that. So I think from this benchmark, analyze community ideas, and the continuous review, obviously there are going to be continuous review on that strategic line of work, because setting up those strategic lines are not going to be just like, yeah, those are, and we're good to go. Definitely we are, or Unlock is going to work on towards that, but definitely on over time you will need to review and also check that strategic lines are still working, or maybe they need to get adjusted, or maybe transform, or fusion, or merge, or whatever. So that definitely is going to be a review process on the time, but that doesn't need to be like every 3 months a review. You can set a time frame for those reviews, maybe an annual review to check, okay, on this strategic line, what has been funded, what has been executed, what impact those projects that were funded made on that strategic line. And then obviously then you will say, okay, so this is not no longer useful. We are going to go on this other way. So I think that could be like the view on this. So I don't think it's like low impact, because those reviews can can make like huge changes. So I would say more on a high impact, high effort, maybe, but I don't know. Just giving this context.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you said because I think the review process is important, and yeah, I'm leaning towards more of a high impact because, like you said, these reviews can reveal a lot about the processes, things that we've been doing, and so what that would mean for everything that we've been doing up till that point could be drastic depending on what we
Mhm.
find out from these reviews. And
Mm.
so, yeah, and
Okay.
as far as the timeline for that goes, I mean, it depends on how quickly we want to be able to iterate on things. Because if we want to make it like 6 months or a year, basically means that we just have to stick with whatever it is that we're doing for that length of time. And so that really depends on what we want.
Yeah.
Angela, what's up?
Yeah.
So I have a contrary view of this. Um, and I just want to say, like, I actually think that if we're communicating our goals properly upfront, that and we're communicating progress on things as we go, then those two things and being an open community means that we will inherently get the feedback that we need as we go along. Like, people aren't going to be silent when they see problems. Like, that just does not happen in these types of communities. Like, they speak up right away. They point problems out as we go along, and effectively we make adjustments or have conversations about them as they're raised. And like, the need for an actual review process is like not necessary. It should be just like inherently built into the system, if that makes sense. Like, and it's something that is like continuous almost. um it and I say that because also, for one thing, like, we don't want people to go along for months and months in a wrong direction. That is like the worst possible thing that could ever happen. And because it creates frustration for them on the other end, and it creates a disalignment, and that creates a sense of incongruency in the community in general. Like, so, but I just don't even think it can happen like that, because people won't be silent along the way. In my experience,
Yeah.
they raise their hands right away and make complaints ASAP. Like, about whether or not something's in alignment, as long as we're communicating well enough up front, like what was the goal and how are we measuring those, then pretty much it can just be like part of the system. Anyway, Stella.
Yeah, also it's funny how I let Cecilia in front of me and then
Mhm.
everyone jumped. Guys,
Oh, I'm
seriously.
sorry.
I'm just messing with you. Sorry. um, okay, no, just one comment about the KPIs. I think the KPIs are kind of important to ecosystem roles. So to DAO council role holders, I think this is where they come in very important and very handy, because those people have kind of special responsibilities towards the DAO, right? And I mean, I put this in my, in my role proposal while back. So I think I should make a small report after 3 months. I think that is what I owe to people who are not as involved as you guys are, to make them understand like what's the actual work that I have done, right? Because we are very much into this, because we're like the kind of like the core group of people, right, who are obsessing over unlock protocol. But that doesn't count for everyone who is part of this ecosystem. So I think to make this like most fair and transparent, I think people who hold ecosystem roles, be it, you know, Danny, who might become the liaison engineer, be it Angela in her role, be it Alex if he takes on the role, myself, David, right? I think we kind of do owe people a small summary of what we've been doing in a regular manner. So I think KPIs, ecosystem roles, yes. KPIs for the DAO as a whole, oh fucking hell no. That makes sense. Oh man, I'm recording this, and now I said this out loud. I'm sorry.
Okay, cool. So I would like to say a bunch of things, and hopefully I can do it very quickly. I think that all of these are great, and maybe everything that all of you guys said makes sense. And I think it depends on the context, right? So one of the first things that you said when you were talking about periodically reviews about the mission and vision, that is, I think, a culture thing. And so it's more about like, is the DAO embodying the culture of the thing that we set out as a mission, rather than to say like, hey, that thing that you're building doesn't meet mission requirements. And I think that will, like, I don't think that we need to have that sort of same review for those. Benchmark and analyze community ideas, I think, is an important sort of thing when we're talking about, do we approve funding for things, right? So having some sort of, what's the word? Rubric of like how we grade them so it feels more fair is maybe a thing that we could develop, maybe not, I don't know. And then on the backside of that, especially when you're talking about Stella, about these people in these roles, I think that it's very important for people in sort of leadership roles to evaluate the impact of an implementation of these projects, right? So like, you know, are we getting more traction with projects like these that we funded once they've been implemented? So I think that all of these things make sense to track in various different ways versus maybe having an outright specific one. And then the KPIs, I think this last one, those, so typically what I've seen is you have your goals for the year and then your KPIs that match those goals, right? And so it's a way of like tracking the process of how you are kind of meeting them as you go, rather than, yeah, they need to be SMART goals and stuff. Does everybody know what the SMART goals are? So, Stella, do you remember the SMART goals? I can pull them up real quick. I'm really bad at them.
No, I remember it from marketing, but I cannot explain it very well. There is actually a graphic for it.
It's an acronym.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes.
So it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Time-bound, yeah.
Yeah,
And
those
so
are
I
objectives.
should reflect that framework, roughly.
I put it on the canvas. I put it on the Miro canvas. Like, wait, I'm dragging it down to you.
Nice. So does anybody disagree with anything that I said or want to expand on it? I know I like said a lot of things. Yes, Stella, go. I can feel it in your.
Yeah. You know, so my point is, right, I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but I used to work at Hochtief. Hochtief used to be the largest construction company honestly in all of Europe, right? Before they got taken over at the stock exchange by a Spanish developer company. And so, you know, what actually led to being taken over internally was that this organization became incredibly slow, right? Due to a lot of administrative processes. So I think, you know, Web3 is all about self-accountability, self-reliance, right? All of these things. So I think what I've learned in the past few years working in these kind of environments is like, yo, we can trust people. Trust people who understand and who, like everyone in here, I want to say I do kind of trust, because you guys have like shown that, you know, you kind of agree with what we're doing right now. So why should I mistrust over trust, right? So it's obviously an active decision you make. And so I think considering these elements, I think less administrative work is not going to only make us more agile as an organization, but it is also creating more trust and kind of like more like longevity. Yeah, I mean, there's probably people who will call me stupid and naive for this, but you know, I've only seen like positive returns on this kind of like putting forward trust attitude. And so I think, you know, everything that kind of like starts clogging the stream, and I feel these kind of things, they have a tendency to do that. It is all about trustless systems, right? But yeah, it's like, but we are still people,
I mean,
right?
it's about creating systems that don't even require trust because they're sort of set up right in the first place to be able to, for people to step into them, and not be able to create so much havoc because you already have a community who's going to not vote for things that don't make sense and point out and I guess that's what I was trying to say is like, if the community has the understanding of what we're trying to accomplish, and that's well enough communicated, they will provide this level of accountability, like sort of as we go along. And yeah, I mean, I guess, so that's what I'm saying is like the systems, it's not that you don't trust people. In fact, it's that you don't have to worry about trust. Like it's sort of inherent. It actually leads to like an ability to relax and not have to like completely analyze your trust metrics like continuously. And that people can sort of step in and just do things and get stuff done.
The systems, yes. The work we do as people together, I think that still requires trust. I think
that's true.
It's a two. Go for it.
Rod.
Yeah, so I kind of had a little idea while we were talking about this, and you were saying like how the Web3 ecosystem is very self-reliant and like independent, and I feel like for myself, like if I have someone else that keeps me a little bit accountable and it's not just myself, then that actually helps a lot. And it kind of made me think of like, what if there was a buddy system for onboarding people? So like if for someone to get onboarded, they like get signed up with like a buddy or something, and then that buddy can kind of guide them through stuff, and then they can go and explore more as they get more used to the environment or something. I don't know.
Yes,
Sounds amazing,
like.
really.
I like the buddy system.
Oh,
Like this
yeah.
idea.
Oh yeah.
Totally.
That's actually really nice. Like someone who's like just gonna be there for you to tell you where you can find stuff. I did this actually intuitively with Crypto Witch, because Crypto Witch is kind of like a shy person, right? So she didn't like even want to come on the door call first and stuff like this. So she was just constantly DMing me. So I was just, taking her by the hand, showing her where everything is. And yeah, like she had I think, very nice and like first good experience, right? Because you're not just entirely left alone with stuff. Because even though Unlock like itself is kind of straightforward, like the ecosystem is kind of not. It has a lot of resources for a lot of different types of people. This is also how we came up with the idea of essentially providing an onboarding section for the different personas we want to talk to. So if you're a developer, you have a very specific onboarding, right? If you're a creator, specific onboarding, like stuff like this. So inspired also from obviously this workshop, obviously. Duh.
I'm very interested in like quote the white glove treatment, but not necessarily for like big clients, like just for the people. I think is really great. I love that idea of an onboarding buddy a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. We're not really in that onboarding discussion so much, but I think that's a really great idea. And, it kind of triggers something around like, an onboarding call experience, which I sort of had from a couple different DAOs where they have some kind of onboarding call where if you're a new DAO member, everyone just gets on. It's kind of like a batch system. So everyone that's been onboarded gets on this call. You get to learn about what the DAO's about, the vision, and all that stuff gets communicated. And then maybe you can get your buddies right from that point. Maybe it's one, maybe it's a couple people, and y'all just kind of like get
It,
going straight together, stuff like that. Or it just sounds really cool.
No.
Actually, can I share like a small anecdote, Alex? Is it okay? Kind
Yeah.
of like blocking your meeting. Um, we actually came up with. It's not directly a buddy system, but it had a very similar effect. Last year in Alana, at the end of the year, people were kind of like, because so much had changed during 2023, right? People even in Alana were kind of like feeling a little bit lost, not necessarily in Alana, but in their work, and like kind of balance between personal life, work life. And so Dani, myself, and Kirsty came up with something we called the Alana hot seat, which essentially was like throwing two random people who opted in this initiative from the DAO into a call and going through a gamified like getting to know yourself and for formulating like goals for the next year with just a random person from the DAO, right? And I was very worried about this like random factor in there, because I was like, oh my god, we have people who are like so different, probably this is never gonna work. And actually some of these people are still meeting, and everyone just had a really good experience in this, and they're kind of like keep helping each other like be accountable for the stuff that they opted into. And like we're definitely going to do this again this year, so we should probably also talk about something like this eventually. Anyways, small side story.
That.
No, that's cool. Does anybody need a break?
I'm okay.
Danny, you want a break? Okay, let's just do like a 5 minute.
No, I didn't say I want.
Oh, you don't need
I
a
was
break.
like, I'm good. I was like, I'm good. That was what that meant.
Everyone's
Cool.
just good, but Alex needs a coffee break, guys. Okay,
No, I'm good.
give the guy 5 minutes. It's okay.
I'm
Give the guy
I'm just
5
on
minutes.
water right
We
now.
can do a coffee break. It's fine. I get some water. It's okay, Alex. Just say yes. It's okay.
All right, fine. Let's do 5 minute
Just
break.
say yes.
Go back.
Okay. See you in 5 minutes, guys.
All right, 5
All
minutes.
right.